see trucks like this every day.
It's the call of the highway, and it's a powerful thing, although some may consider it an oxymoron. It's the 9th annual Shell Oil Company Truck Beauty Contest, and the runway has been rolled out right here in Oklahoma City.
It's anodized, yeah. It's very different. It keeps the color scheme through the whole truck pretty well, you know.
That's like a gold, right?
Yeah. And I like those lights up there, too. And there's a lot of custom stuff on this truck.
These judges aren't concerned with evening gowns or bathing suits. Instead, it's custom chrome, lights, and paint that are filling their scorecards.
It's exterior only is what we're judging, but really we're looking for the true trucker, the person who really cares about their home, their vehicle, and their lifestyle.
Talk about a bad boy lifestyle. The first runner-up is Showtime, a 1991 custom Peterbilt owned by Cliff Steen of Alberta, Canada. But it's all James Dean up on the screen.
He fits the image of the truck. He has that bad boy type image, and the truck has that image.
It's definitely a big rig and expensive too.
I can't be telling you how much money's in this truck. People think I'm a fool.
Has anybody ever said to you, hey man, you look like you've been hit by a Mack truck?
Oh yeah, hauls loads all the time.
Well, visualize being flattened by this 1961 model with more than 1.1 million miles.
The only oil leak it has, it leaks a little spot about the size of a quarter underneath the rear end. One rear end.
You don't think warranty'd cover that?
I doubt it.
But if it only had an air conditioner. Brett Johnson, Newsline 9.
It's full, too.
It's our livelihood in a sense.
Claudine and David Abel retired from Tinker Air Force Base years ago. Even so, they say their future still depends on the base.
That's why we're here. I mean, that's why we stayed rather than moving out of there.
Arms distance apart, please.
But Tinker is one of several bases targeted for closure. That's why the Abels joined forces with an estimated 5,000 people to form a human chain around the base. They hope their show of hands will convince the Base Closure Commission to save Tinker from retirement.
You came all the way from Enid? Oh, that's great.
This young participant isn't the only one who traveled many miles to be here. Sherry Harris made the trip from Lamar.
So people because why does it affect you?
We live in Oklahoma. Anything that happens in Oklahoma affects us, no matter where we're at.
People of all generations lined the streets waving red, white, and blue as if it were the 4th of July. Only these patriots are here for a declaration of dependence on a base they say is vital to Oklahoma's economy.
Patriotism is important. Tinker has been very important for Oklahoma, and Tinker's been there through the wars. I was even thinking my great aunt worked out at Tinker. It's gone through generations. It's been here for the people of Oklahoma, and we need to be there for Tinker when they need us.
In the end, the human chain was shy a few thousand links, but not short on spirit. Veteran Dwayne Morgan says Oklahomans won't give up without a fight.
Do you think the Base Closure Commission will actually take notice of everybody out here?
I have no idea, but I'm here just in case they do.
Dana Baird, Newsline 9, late edition.
Challenger going ballistic momentarily.
He's a pretty good pilot. Do some stuff I could never do if I was up there, that's for sure.
The Aerospace America Air Show is a great place to be a kid.
Yeah, that one's coming in real low. Look, Corey.
There you go. Hey, how do you do that? Oh, no. What do you call that?
Good. Scott and Lisa Puri and daughter Ashley drove all the way from Texarkana.
See, Dad, this is a great Father's Day present.
I enjoy it.
At this air show, there's no shortage of folks having fun.
Here comes 3. Who is it? 3! These ones are coming by faster than the other ones that came by.
Unless you have a binocular shortage.
I can't find them anywhere. There they are. Oh, they're going to crash. Corey, let me see them. Here they go again. Here it comes. Corey, let Robert see them. These are really cool. Look at all of them. Here, Rob, let him. It's his turn. Here, Rob.
Thousands of Oklahomans spent the day with their eyes on the sky and their mouths hanging open, watching pilots put their planes through some amazing paces.
How does she do all those turns? Why don't you go in the airplane with her? You want to do that?
Yep, it's great to be a kid at an air show, no matter how old you are. At Aerospace America, I'm Randy Ritter, Newsline 9, late edition.
you thought it would be?
Yeah, I figured out in the sand and it's right downtown.
First stop, the Alamo. It's the most photographed tourist spot in San Antonio. And our Oklahoma kids from Easter Seals, Make-A-Wish, and MDA stepped right up and smiled.
We saw the rifles, saw where different soldiers were buried, different paintings of different soldiers. It was really interesting.
It was awesome. It was different though.
Then an authentic Mexican feast, complete with a sing-along serenade. But the real fun came after the food. A scramble for the candy and dress-up time for dads.
Are you having fun? Hi, how y'all doing? Come on in. Welcome to the boat here.
The pace slowed down a bit as we cruised down the San Antonio River, each young person accompanied by one parent.
It's really the only time I've had to go out with my mother unless we're going down to the hospital or something.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Then on to meet Shamu, the showstopper at SeaWorld. With grandbaby Shamu by her side, it was quite a splash.
I want to point out some of the different sharks that we have in our exhibit.
Time for Betty Bye in, of all things, the Shark Tank.
First of all, I've never seen one before, and then you actually sleep with one. That's even more different.
It was a deep sleep experience with a deep-sea creature close by.
Sleep tight with the sharks. When we wake up in the morning, they'll still be there.
In San Antonio, Cynthia Gunn, Newsline 9. It's the hot ticket in town, a free pass into San Antonio's Fiesta Texas theme park, where the flavor of old Mexico comes alive. The 6 Oklahoma kids from Make-A-Wish, Easter Seals, and MDA soaked in the colorful sights and sounds. After the show, they met the dancers on stage.
It's important because it's our background and this is our culture and this is how we express our feelings.
Enough of the inside stuff. It's time to head outside to the water rides. This is my ride. I love this one. Wet
It's a great ride.
Yeah, I know, and I'm looking forward to this one. They call this one the Gully Washer, and for good reason.
how was it, Kevin?
Yeah. Good.
Did you get wet?
Yeah, I did. It was wet. It was pretty good. It was fun.
Look at that waterfall over there. That's the one that got Jim wet. It did not get our hair.
Yes, Cynthia and I, we just handled it well. Perfect. Yeah, it was our driving. Don't you think, Cynthia?
Yes.
Split driving. There was no driving to it. Good afternoon.
Okay, enough water. It's time to sit in the sun, dry off, and do a little bird watching.
They do us a tremendous service out there in the wild of helping keep those populations under control.
This is the San Antonio Children's Zoo. Today's message, respect animals, protect the environment.
She's a great
What do you think of that one?
And she does eat things like rats, mice, lizards, snakes, big insects. And as
Have you
I
ever
said,
seen anything like
she doesn't catch them quite the same way as the hawks. She likes leaves too, as you can tell. But look at her.
Coming on a trip like this gives us happy times. And that's really important when you're going through a life-threatening thing with a child.
Bye, sweetie. And when the trip is over, it was more than just a good time. There is new confidence for the kids and new friends for a lifetime.
We'll see you later, okay? Stick right in there.
This is what I have. Memories of this place and y'all and the people that we shared time with here, got real close to. And you can't take that away.
"6:45 on a Saturday morning, and the men and women of an AWACS crew are going to work. Their office is an E-3 Sentry plane. They sit side by side, peering at radar screens, providing critical information for fighter pilots and missile operators. On this particular flight, they're headed for western Arkansas on an AWACS-sponsored training mission called Coronet Sentry.
By doing this, we have an opportunity to bring the air-to-air guys, the air-to-ground guys, the Army Air Defense Artillery, the guys in the Humvee with their Stingers, et cetera, bringing that together and to work as both an offensive and a defensive force for those trained objectives so that when we go do this for real, it's not the first time.
In this training scenario, the Blue Force will try to drop bombs on a range in western Arkansas. The Red Force will do their best to keep them from getting there. Each side has an AWACS radar plane watching out for their fighter planes.
This happens to be the red E3 that you're flying on now. We would control the F-15s, and we would data link with the Army for direction of the Patriot missile engagements.
But even all of this sophisticated equipment can't stop Mother Nature. On the way to Arkansas, the training mission was scrapped because pilots could not see their targets through the clouds.
You know, there's not an exercise around that's worth one person's life or losing any taxpayer equipment that we have out there in the form of F-15s, A-6s, et cetera, et cetera.
They'll try again later. The training exercise goes through October 21st. At Tinker Air Force Base, Dave Balut, Newsline 9.
It's been 40 years since some of these men have seen each other, but time seems to melt away when they start remembering old times and Korean War buddies.
He was a pretty ugly guy, so, you know, ugly doesn't age very much. It stays the same.
They were all members of F Company of the 45th Infantry Division, and they spent 2 long years fighting side by side during the Korean War.
It could really chop a man in two if you didn't watch it.
We developed a bond that, in case of many of us, closer than brothers. We have a relationship and a feeling for each other that's hard to replace. You can't replace it. It's something like even closer in some cases than you do for your family, because we could have been killed together, we depended on each other, and it's a great relationship, a lasting relationship.
First time the Korean War, that folding metal stopped.
That relationship grew out of grimy days in battle, where young men watched many buddies die. But along with fighting hard, the soldiers played hard, and they choose to remember the jokes, tricks, and good times they shared.
I guess that's one thing that's probably different from us maybe than from the Vietnam veterans. When we get together, we tend to remember the funny things that happened to us, and there were a lot of funny things that happened to us. And so that's what we usually dwell on, even though we remember these guys that were killed.
They say their time in the war almost doesn't seem real, but they all have scars to remind them it was. This small group represents 4 Purple Hearts, a Bronze and Silver Star. Along with the medals, these veterans carry other trophies from the war, and it's those friendships and memories that they cherish the most. Heidi Browning, Newsline 9, Late Edition. Vicki Southard took a gun safety class about 5 years ago. Today, she's a certified instructor, and about 85% of the people in her classes are women.
It's mainly for personal protection. They're really getting scared out there because of everything that's going on.
Women, as a whole, I think, are a little more
concerned about.
Fred Baker says it's very common for women to now buy guns. Manufacturers even have special lines of handguns aimed at women.
It's generally a lady who's decided that something's happened and they decide they want a firearm that's theirs in the home. Even though the husband may have firearms, they want a personal one.
Our feeling is that you need to be educated about what you're going to get before you get it, or if you've already got one, you certainly need to learn about how to shoot it safely, how to handle it safely. Otherwise, it's just another tool in the house that could be misused, and that's not a good thing either.
Education is stressed in class. There's even a cartoon video to teach kids to stay away from guns.
Okay, now what? These 2 fingers through the throat.
So Vicki showed me the kinds of things she teaches women in her classes. She says she doesn't believe everyone should own a gun, but she does think everyone needs to know how to make one safe. And she says once women know how to shoot, many turn to sport competition and target in on a new hobby. Heidi Browning, Newsline 9.
It's sunup in northern Oklahoma, and the call of the Osage Indians rolls across the plains. The tribe's official town crier tells of an honorary chief, Desert Storm Commander General Norman Schwarzkopf. Storm and Norman's role in the Gulf War has earned him the special recognition of Eagle Chief.
That name that I'm going to give him now is Cecil Kahiki. That's the name my people said was over. He's the top man.
Like any great chief, Schwarzkopf acknowledges those who served under him.
I accept this great honor on behalf of the 541,000 magnificent soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Coast Guardsmen that were under my command during Desert Storm, and I accept this honor for them.
It was this time last year that Schwarzkopf was named to the Board of Governors of the Nature Conservancy. It's a private group which acquires threatened ecosystems like the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve here in Osage County. Back when the Osage Indians lived here, more than 60 million bison roamed the American plains. So it's only fitting on the day that Schwarzkopf gets his Osage name, he'll help reintroduce the bison to the American plains. 300 bison were released to roam wild on a portion of the Tallgrass Preserve's 30,000 acres. Their grazing habits will invigorate new plant growth, and it's hoped the rich vegetation will in turn help the bison multiply.
Think what it's going to be like a few years from now. You're going to be able to go out and stand on top of one of these hills here and look in all directions as far as you can possibly see and see nothing but tallgrass prairie. And out there in the middle of them are going to be 1,800 bison roaming freely. That's exactly what our ancestors saw 300 years ago.
I'd like the 8th graders to go over stand next to the edge of the grass.
The chance to see a piece of living history drew people of all ages.
Is adults on the left and right close in just a little bit.
I thought it was pretty neat. I thought it was wonderful. It was a real emotional experience.
Wild bison on a prairie that stretches as far as the eye can see. For the Nature Conservancy and the Osage people, it means the restoration of a truly American landscape. In Osage County, I'm Mitch Jolniker, Newsline 9, late edition.
A lot of people are trying to eat a lot more healthy these days, and you have some of the recipes that you normally eat for Thanksgiving dinner, so we're going to get some of your ingredients and see how your recipes stack up.
The first item for most is usually the turkey, and there are actually nutrition tips to consider for it.
One thing that you will want to pay attention to, though, is whether or not it's a self-basting turkey. This one here is a self-basting turkey, and the first ingredient is vegetable oil. So you may want to get a fresh one that doesn't have any basting material in it.
Considering casseroles, consider dairy options, such as no-fat cheeses.
They even have no-fat sour cream now,
so that's
a good deal.
You said in a vegetable dish.
Yeah, so that you're not so hungry by the time the meal comes. A lot of people eat later, 2 or 3 o'clock, and that way you're not starving by the time you sit down to eat. With the eggs, a lot of our Thanksgiving recipes are going to call for eggs. You can either do 2 whites for every whole egg because the white doesn't have any fat or cholesterol, or do an egg substitute, and you can buy those frozen or fresh now.
And it doesn't change the recipe?
Not usually. Most recipes you can modify and you won't notice much of a difference.
Stuffing is a Thanksgiving staple. Are there goods and bads for stuffing?
Well, yeah, one thing with the homemade, if you can use your own chicken stock or your turkey stock and skim the fat off the top, if you make it the night before, you're going to decrease the fat. And also it's going to be a lot lower in sodium than any of the processed stuffings that you might buy at the store. Some of the commercial ones that you might buy call for margarine or butter. You could probably get by with doing about half the amount.
There's one thing you can't do without, though.
What do you normally have for dessert, Deborah?
I know this is going to be bad. We do a chocolate icebox pie, homemade, with the cocoa and sugar and flour and milk and eggs and whipped cream on top.
The heavy whipping cream, you might try evaporated skim milk. That's a better option. Another thing, you know, good old pumpkin pie, modifying the recipe for pumpkin pie. And pumpkin pie is a better option than pecan pie. It has about half as much fat.
We'd made an agreement with Manuel for him to come out at about 8:45.
Prison escapee Manuel North talked with police negotiators all night and into the morning. He said he'd give up and release his 2 captives, but instead he threw out a pipe bomb. The 5th explosive he blew up during his marathon standoff.
They're coming out. They're coming out.
Moments later, his attorney, Charlie Holdstock, came out of the asphalt company. The second hostage, Buck Morgan, waved for police to come in. But they were cautious, approaching both released men slowly, making sure they were not wired with bombs.
He had said that he booby-trapped the attorney that he was holding hostage. There was some indication that he had been handcuffed. Both of them still had handcuffs on them when they were released. There was some indication that the attorney had also had his ankle tied, and those were cut loose so that he could walk out.
The hostages told police North had killed himself, and eventually they found his body inside the building. It was a tragic end for members of North's family, who said he only wanted media attention because he felt his adult bookstore operations were unfairly targeted by police.
And I want the whole system to know that they failed my brother. And I wanted my family to know they failed my brother.
But it was North who failed to keep promises. First, when he agreed to turn himself in yesterday, and then this morning when he said he was tired and willing to surrender. Instead, he apparently took his own life, ending the long siege and getting the final attention he so dramatically demanded. Heidi Browning, Newsline 9.
Mona. Mona, trunk.
They're not what you'd expect to find in Hugo, Oklahoma, but here they are. Elephants.
Back up. Trunk.
Lots of them.
Well, anything you give them is a treat. Bread, candy, M&Ms, they're all curious. They're all like big babies. They all want to see what you have for them.
Maybe that's what they are to John Walker III, but they're an awful big curiosity to other folks.
I'll tell my friend where I work, and we just got done feeding the elephants, and he'll just look at me crazy like, elephants? What do you mean elephants? You have a dog named Elephant? Or they just have, they can't contemplate seeing elephants in Hugo, Oklahoma.
Hugo is the winter home of the Carson and Barnes Circus, the biggest show under the big top.
I broke a lot of horses in here, seen a lot of horses in here.
And D.R. Miller's very own since 1937. The animals and their trainers spend 18 weeks in Hugo. The rest of the time, they're somewhere else.
I mean, we drive to work every day just like everybody else, but we get a different scenery. Since it's, a different place every day, you've always got something new to look at, something new to do, something new to see.
That's why Cindy Cavallini joined the circus 9 years ago, and why John Frazier never left it. He was born into a circus family, grew up cleaning out cages. Now, he stars in one.
The cats are well-trained. They're well-trained animals, and the only thing that can mess things up is they get out of their routine and get mixed up. That's where people start getting hurt and everything. But if you can keep everything under control, then you usually don't have any trouble at all.
So there you have it. Lions and tigers and elephants in Hugo. Oh my. Randy Ritter, Newsline 9.
Now make sure you get all the baby plants. There's a lot of them under there.
The latest weapon in the war on drugs has killed more than 6 million wild marijuana plants in a week's time. It's the herbicide commonly known as Roundup. Farmers have used it for years to control weeds in wheat fields. Governor Walters signed a bill 2 weeks ago okaying its use by drug agents.
You use these kinds of herbicides in accord with the labeling, which has been thoroughly researched by federal statutes and covered by federal law, and you don't have a problem as long as you use them according to the labeling.
A red dye is added to the mix so that potential harvesters will know the crop is tainted. Opposition groups say the herbicides threaten the environment, while the wild marijuana plants pose little threat.
For somebody to say that we shouldn't be out here eradicating it because most of it is low in quality totally ignores the reason we're here in the first place, and that is to rid Oklahoma of its marijuana problem.
And it can be a huge problem for sheriffs in small rural counties who have no manpower and no budget to solve it themselves.
I mean, you take 10 pounds of low THC content dope and mix it with 1 pound of good dope, you've got 11 pounds of dope. Who's going to test the THC content when they buy a bag of dope? Who else is going on? For sure.
So Sheriff Scoville can't wait for dealers to see red as their profits start to wilt. In Blaine County, I'm Randy Ritter, Newsline 9.
The state's landfills are in a mess. Starting today, the EPA is mandating new state-of-the-art environmental protection techniques. They're designed to protect the groundwater and make the environment safer, but they are also costly. The landfills that can't afford the changes must close.
Congress was worried that we were inadvertently creating new Superfund sites at our municipal landfills. And through problems like Love Canal, we've learned the painful lesson that it is far cheaper to do it right the first time than it is to go back and clean up our past mistakes.
But that means of the more than 100 landfills around the state, only about 40 are still open today, and there are very few left in western Oklahoma. Smaller communities will now have to pay to have their trash hauled to regional landfills like this one near El Reno. And that means business here will be booming. By Monday, this site will get an additional 250 tons of garbage a day that used to go somewhere else. Some 36 communities, some up to 140 miles away, have agreed to ship their trash here. And that's good news to these operators who've made the investment it takes to stay open.
The key to the waste business is volume. If you have the volume to pay for the operation without a high cost in operation, then you can do it. If you're trying to charge higher rates, usually the cities will go somewhere else.
The trash business has become big business with a big price tag. Almost everyone can expect increased trash rates, and there will no longer be free dumping at this landfill. But environmentalists say it's pay now or pay even more later. Heidi Browning, Newsline 9.
And action! Action!
The movie You're in the Army Now is nothing if not realistic. And basically, basic training begins just like this. The scene is so realistic because real drill sergeants are doing all the yelling, something director Dan Petrie insisted upon.
He's been real flexible in time and also in our space. Yes, that's correct.
So, Sergeant, a new career, perhaps? You're about to be a movie star.
It'd be great. It'd be another option for me, but I still have 12 years left in the service. But it'd be great.
Put your pants in and take them glasses off. You think you're on the beach?
Humphreys and the other DIs on post helped actress Lynn Whitfield understand what drill instructors do best: motivate.
From here on out, your butt is mine. You will obey every order without question.
Unless you're a big fan, you may not recognize the target of her wrath. MTV's Pauly Shore had about 5 pounds of hair shaved from his head to do this movie.
People have only seen me that much. There's a lot more to be seen. Just because I don't have the long, crusty mop doesn't mean the inner soul of me isn't there. Mr. Andy Dick, yeah. All right.
Pauly's pal in the movie is his real-life buddy from MTV.
And so here's what I do for the whole movie. I'll give you a little acting tip when I'm doing it. I go, you go, do something. Hey, Bones. That's me. And then what about this? Oh, wait. What about, oh man, I can't believe we're here. This is sand.
Well, I can believe it, because you're a screw-up.
That's the other thing. I used to go, oh, Bones, or I yell at him.
Hey, quiet, please.
Roll sound.
A lot of people do. This movie may be low on budget, but it's high on yelling.
I will be over your butt like white on rice.
At Fort Sill, I'm Randy Renner, Newsline 9.
When firefighters first pulled out their hoses around 7 o'clock, they knew they had a tough one on their hands. A large building with newly remodeled motel rooms upstairs, a ballroom and restaurant downstairs. The decorative tower was the first casualty. Winds gusting to 35 miles per hour and plenty of wood to fuel it got the flames really rolling quickly, shooting through the roof from one end to the other. But somehow, firefighters managed to keep it from spreading to 3 other buildings in the Butterfield Inn complex.
Firefighters on the north and northwest side of this took a tremendous beating. They hunkered down. They had fire actually lapping down on top of them and a tremendous amount of smoke, but they held their ground. Had they not held their ground, had they had to back out, we would have lost another building in this complex.
One firefighter was hurt when he slipped and fell backwards on his air tank. Major Danny Sellers, the commanding officer on Engine 12, was rushed off to a hospital. The hotel's director of operations says he heard about this at his home in Yukon. Bob Luter says 22 rooms in this building had been scheduled to open in less than 25 days.
The loss is one thing, the timing's poor because now you won't get open for summer, and we'd look forward to that.
Now all he can do is start over again. When he isn't carrying a briefcase to court, attorney William Hollis totes a video camera and plays sentry, trying to photograph the prostitutes and johns near his office. He's asking police to press indecent exposure charges against an alleged prostitute who appears to have lifted her dress while his camera was rolling.
I know that some men laugh and say, well, that, they want to see that, but I don't want to see somebody like that showing their rear end to me. I don't want to see that.
Hollis doesn't try to hide his camera, hoping to run the hookers off.
Looking at this girl, she's a prostitute there. She's one of the regulars that's in the area. She's waiting on a car now. If you see her down there. See, she turned away from it.
The attorney is passionate about his crusade.
They used to do things in the alley here, pull up in that alley, right up in there and just do their thing right there. They don't care who's watching them, whether it's a little kid or whatever. I mean, we can't have that kind of thing. It's too many bad influences for children now anyway.
And yes, sir, we're all for Mr. Hollis.
Landlord Bonnie Ballard is one of the residents who appreciates what Hollis is doing.
I run 5 to 6 off of my front every morning. They follow my tenants up to the door to pay their rent, trying to get the money.
We just saw a girl flagging down a car. Now she's fighting with the police officer down here.
While Hollis is talking with a police officer, he sees what appears to be a woman soliciting a customer. The officer arrests her.
No, I asked her for a ride because I was hot. I said, could I get a ride?
Hollis also catches up to the woman who allegedly exposed herself to him.
Come on, Candy, come on, what?
He endures a lot of choice words, but learns her identity.
I got her name is Thelma Smith, and I'm going to turn it in to the police officer now. Thelma R.E.E. Smith, okay.
Dave Balut, Newsline 9, late edition.
That's why you're out here, you pervert.
Well, what about that?
The big push is on at football practice.
Set, hit.
Hit harder, run faster, crush the competition.
Set, hit.
Players are giving it their all to meet the intense physical challenge, sometimes in the intense heat. Despite gridiron guts, sometimes they get hurt.
Did you hear a pop or anything?
No.
So check to make sure the team trainer is certified and prepared for the worst. Joe Palin is a trainer with the Oklahoma Center for Athletes.
If we have something that's potentially serious, I have my mobile phone. We call 911. We call the players' parents. My student trainers know how to help me splint.
Some schools have two-a-day practices. At Edmond North, it's one long 3.5-hour practice. Mild weather this go-round, but sometimes players are pushing their bodies in 100-degree heat.
6 weeks ago, they should have been getting ready for what they're doing today with running, flexibility, and strength training type activities.
But how do they handle it now? I mean, they're out here now.
Well, plenty of fluids is the main thing, and rest periods. These coaches are very attuned, I think, to the kids needing periods of rest, plenty of fluids, and an appropriate balanced diet.
Freshman O, down here, let's go.
And some players are their own worst enemies. That's when parents and coaches need to step in and speak up.
Do you try to tell them what mentality they should have, that they shouldn't try to just deal with the pain and tough it out?
Well, I mean, there's a point in time to where a kid has to be honest with himself. Is he really hurt, or is he just trying to get out of something? If the kid's really hurt, we're sure not going to put him out there to do something else, that's even worse than that.
The single-engine plane apparently lost power on takeoff, and the pilot could not stop before he ran out of runway. The two-seater skidded through grass, took a hop over the creek, and hit the south embankment. Rescue crews found the pilot, 57-year-old Russ Rigsby, and his passenger, Tom Tansel, pinned in the wreckage. After they got them out, they were carried back across the creek.
And then when we got them there, and then we had to bring them up a 14-foot embankment. So we had to use fire department ladders, which we did rather quickly. Within 20 minutes, we had them, from the time we got the call, we had them extricated and ready to be transported.
I believe that he lost power on takeoff.
Jude Northcutt didn't see the crash, but as a pilot, he knows there's not enough altitude on takeoff to provide for a soft crash landing.
If he had been 10 feet higher, or even 5 feet higher, he could have set up a mush. In other words, instead of hitting something head on, he would have mushed it in and walked away better.
Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board looked through the crumpled wreckage of the Cessna 175 today before it was carefully removed from the creek bed where it crashed. The plane was taking off Saturday afternoon when it apparently developed mechanical problems. Witnesses say the plane was airborne at about tree level when something went wrong.
He indicated at that point that the prop was not turning on the aircraft. The second witness that I interviewed saw the aircraft a little further down the runway, trying to make a landing back onto the runway.
The plane then hit, ran off the runway, took a bounce, and crashed into the creek embankment. Emergency crews found Tom Tansel of Edmond and pilot Russell Rigsby pinned in the airplane. NTSB investigators say the plane will be thoroughly studied in a nearby hangar. They will also look into Rigsby's background and experience.
We do investigate the man, machine, and the environment. And as far as the aircraft is concerned, we will completely review each system of the airframe, the cockpit instrumentation, the entire engine, and the engine accessories.
Smith says it could be 6 months before the final report is sent to NTSB headquarters in Washington, and then they'll determine the probable cause of the crash. Heidi Browning, Newsline 9.
Pretty picked through.
Do you think it's hard to buy for kids?
It's kind of a challenge sometimes.
The sounds and sights of a hectic holiday.
There's buttons that you push, but it's not working.
My feet hurt.
Forget the gifts. This mom loads her cart with kids and begins the wish list.
What is this?
Power Rangers and
Sega, Nintendo.
Some shoppers ran into the biggest problem of all, a sellout.
Is the Predator, is it something that's real popular and sells a lot?
Right, we've already sold out of the Predator toys, except for that one, and then we should be getting some more in.
I've been to like 5 different places and you can't find none of the men and none of the vehicles.
So what are you going to do?
I'm in trouble.
So what's the hot sell this Christmas? We borrowed a Venture toy manager to show us the ropes. Power Ranger walkie-talkies, how well do they sell?
Great toys, sold a lot of those this year, anything Power Ranger sells. The VTECs, these are getting more popular every year. They're getting younger and younger, and the kids, the ages on them are 2.5 and up now, and they used to start like 5 years old and up.
Okay, now what's the biggest Barbie seller that we've seen this year so far?
The Holiday Barbie.
And look.
Somebody's brought one back right here. This one here is probably the hottest doll, it and the Dr. Barbie, which we've sold out of.
This is a big seller?
Real big. It's probably the biggest seller for Fisher-Price we had this year was the all-in-one kitchen.
Okay, so now I've gotten all of my Christmas gifts. I think there's only one thing left that I really have to get. Battery. Batteries. Batteries. Oh man. Tamara Pratt, Newsline 9.